Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Michelle Pope. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. Here's my sip. Good coffee. And it's decaf. Many of you know I'm on a decaf gig, and so it's decaf, but it's delicious. It's delicious. And Howard Miller has just come into the virtual neighborhood, so I am going to send him a message and let him know we will be with him shortly. So how are you all this morning? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you giving yourself love? I hope so. I hope so. I hope you are. First of all, I want to say happy Good Friday, or not happy Good Friday, but contemplative Good Friday to all of you who are believers. As you all know, I make it no secret that I am a believer. So today will be a day of not trying to rush around, but to be silent, take some time to be silent and to engage in what this day means. I also have I have begun a 20-day Daniel fast, which is amazing. It has been really amazing. I am feeling this is my second week already. I'm not supposed to have the coffee. That's the one thing that I am doing that I shouldn't do, but I love the taste of coffee. It's my beverage of choice. And I only have 2 cups now, and it's decaf. So I've really limited myself quite a bit. But it is a fast where it's 20 days. I drink the water as I always have. There is every 2 hours or 2 to 3 hours, I take a different. I'm using the D Herbs 20-day fast, and I take every 2 to 3 hours, I take another vitamin for another part of my body so I don't get fatigued and get sick and all of that. I am taking vitamin C, and I also continue with my sea moss. I take 2 tablespoons of sea moss every day, and my collagen. So those are the things that I'm continuing to do. And we will continue to have some of those health shows and where we talk about aging and nutrition and aging and exercise and all of that. But today we are going to hear from Howard Miller. And as I said to you earlier, he is an author, speaker, entrepreneur. His key focus is helping people embrace life's challenges with levity, resilience, and a perspective of fostering personal growth and professional success. Howard Miller is the #1 best-selling author of Burdens and Blessings, a lighter-hearted approach. I'm going to start bringing him in now. A lighter-hearted approach for middle-aged folks for dealing with aging parents, a heartfelt and humorous exploration of the challenges and joy of caring for aging parents. He himself, through personal and anecdotes, Howard Miller shares his journey and how he navigated that journey. And this book is amazing. I ordered it, so I'll show you the cover later on down the road. But I did read the excerpt from. I love Barnes and Noble. I've stopped ordering stuff. I went to Barnes and Noble, and they had a thing, and they said I needed to wait for it, so they're going to send it to me. But they had an excerpt, and it is the way we live our lives. So. Howard Miller is here with us this morning on Life is a Sacred Journey to share his perspective, but also, friends, as we have said here on Life is a Sacred Journey, you have to laugh. You have to embrace the humor of life. You have to hold on to that stuff, that spirit inside of you, that little child that makes you giggle about stuff. And sometimes, as I've told you, I look in the mirror and I giggle at myself because maybe of what I'm thinking at that moment. And I just start laughing because I'm like, I can't believe you're thinking that, Michelle Pope, right? But life will pow you. And if you don't take time to laugh and breathe and embrace the joy of it, you soon become a person that's aging, that's feeling depressed and feeling like life is coming to an end. So join me, friends. Join me on my Facebook friends, virtual neighborhood across the pond, because there's a lot of you across the pond and here in the States and here in California. Welcome, Mr. Howard Miller. Welcome, Howard.
Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I came in the middle of your. I thought, oh, she's talking about me. Okay,
That's
there you go.
right. That's right. I brought you in as I was sharing. I actually came on a few minutes early because we changed our set and everything. And so I wanted to share it and get their opinion and all of that. And so I started talking about you because there was a woman that I knew. She has since passed away, and she was one of the oldest comedians. Ann Miller, I believe is her last name, but she came on the show,
My name.
and yeah, yeah, your name. And she went to England and did vaudeville in her 80s.
Wow, that's fun.
And it was her thing was exactly what yours is. It's like, let's keep some joy and levity in our lives. But as you know, caregiving, I've worked in with caregivers for over 28 years, who are caring for people who are diagnosed with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. It can be hard. It can be taxing on the spirit. But there's joy in it too, that even because I'm reflecting on that right now as I've ended my career with Alzheimer's Services of the East Bay. I'm reflecting after I got over sort of like, okay, now what do I do? I started reflecting on, wow, how much joy they gave me and how much laughter we shared, because their filter was gone and they said things to me that were just totally hilarious. And so I want to just give you an opportunity to tell us what inspired you to write Burdens and Blessings.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast,
Of
Michelle.
course, of course.
And I realize we're neighbors, aren't we? Because I'm in San Francisco. You're in the East Bay.
I'm in the
Yeah,
East Bay. We'll
yeah.
have to
So
get
yeah,
together.
where I realized, wait, you're right there. I'm not part of the industry you were in. I'm amazed at the people who are dedicated to, the caregivers and everyone who does that. I worked with them with my parents. The main reason I wrote this book was it was one way to help with my grief. That's the way I wrote it. It was cathartic. I, I I spent my father lived to 99. My mom lived to 92. They lived long lives, and the fact that they lived long lives meant I had them longer, and how lucky I am. And it makes it challenging, particularly since the last 5 or 10 years of their life, my life became more about them. And they were in Los Angeles and Florida. And I wouldn't let them go from Los Angeles to Florida on their own, but they insisted on going, so I had to go with them. So a lot of what I did was for them. And I took a lot of notes. In my book, I mentioned I had over 350 Word documents on various things, on doctors and diagnosis. And so I just needed to get that out. That's the main reason I wrote it. It was for me. It was also, once I wrote it and read it, and my brother read it, and I realized there was a lot of the subtitle is a light-hearted approach, which there's funny parts in the book, and that's levity. And I thought, I mean, that's what we grew up with. A book in our house was laughter is the best medicine. So we grew up with that. And I thought, wow, as you just mentioned, there was some funny things of the unfiltered people with Alzheimer's and what they said. But I I thought this is something other people might be going through, or how can they use levity? And levity isn't, it can be humor, but it also could just be a change of perspective.
Mm,
And Michelle, I'm also looking, well, how can people in the business world use this? The power of levity and
yeah.
perspective. So I wrote it for myself, period. But now I'm looking to see where else, where it could go.
I love that you the comment around helping people in the business world and the corporate structure, as a CEO for for the last 15 years, um, being able to take time out and to really um, not I'm not going to say not take the job seriously, because of course I took the job seriously, but there were moments that I needed humor, that I needed to breathe and to bring a sense of balance. And for me, that's what levity sort of is that sense of balance of that one. It's a kind of a gift. And I love that your book is Burdens and Blessings, because to me, I look at that as a blessing, that there were times where I had to go, wait a minute, Michelle, calm down, girlfriend. You're doing too much. You're doing too much. And then it would bring a sense of release.
Release less stress, but I'll go one further, Michelle. It helps your bottom line. It helps return on investments. If you want to look at it from a number perspective, it absolutely does that. You can, and levity could be something, the way that you're looking at a situation that stresses you out. You change the question you're asking yourself, you're asking others. And that, and that's yeah, and I tell people when I teach management skills or coaching skills, ask as many questions as you can with what or how. Don't use why. Why puts people on the defensive. Leading questions puts your theories in, and that is a form of levity, of because that's changing perspective. You can't do that every time, right? I mean, there's it's and I was concerned. I don't think this has happened, but I was concerned that I'm not minimizing the hard part of of whatever, if it's work or taking care of elderly, ill people who are ill or people who are older. It's hard, but just putting this in just in my help me,
Yes.
you
Well,
know.
and for our own, for your, you said that you wrote the book for yourself as well, but for it's important for our, as we're aging, and we've turned all of these terms into doom and gloom terms, but aging in a way where we can embrace that aging and find the joy in it. It also helps us to be more adventurous with our lives and to find a different perspective in which to live it out. Like I, when you said 99, I'm like, yeah, now you got to have people around you to love you and to do the certain things. I've learned that over the last 28 years. But at the end of the day, if you're still here and you still have the power to be courageous, to wake up every morning and through the blessing of the higher power, nobody should try to take away your joy.
Absolutely not. And I mean, I did realize when you get, well, from my experience of it with
Hmm.
my, in the 90s, when I'd asked like one of them, what did you do this morning? I had breakfast. They were dead serious. But at that, if that's all you or I did, we'd be like, wait, you have to do more. But if that gives them the satisfaction that we get for having to do more, in some ways that's a gift. I think as you get older, depending, you live more in the moment because that's what you have. And as far as what you said, as far as taking advantage, last year and this year, I spent over a month in Asia. I could work anywhere with my bookkeeping business, which I'm lucky, and I have people who are here, but I hadn't traveled in a while. And it was like, okay, this is the time to do those things. And I remember going, and I don't know, how did we travel without Google Maps before
I
our
know.
phones? But when I was walking and I could hear my mother's voice, because she would always say when you have the instructions, go 1,000, turn right in 1,000 feet. She goes, how do you know what 1,000 feet is? So I'm walking and they're saying that. I'm like, Ma, I'll figure that out. So,
That's
so
beautiful.
yeah.
And I'm so glad you got a chance to do that. That's what I was thinking when long story short, we had to close Alzheimer's services of the East Bay down. And so that meant my career with them was ending after 28 years. And that was the first thing I thought of, Howard. I was like, you know what, Michelle? You need to get the heck out of Dodge. You need to find some places to go that you've been wanting to go forever and been too busy to go and really enjoy it, staying for a period of time because, our vacation when you're working is limited. So, what did you learn from that trip?
trips. I've done it twice.
Oh,
Well, I did it last year. What are we in? 2025? I did
yeah.
2024 and 25. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going longer. Um, what was the name? God, now I'll put myself. I think it was the 80s. There was a singing group called Swing Out Sister, and I believe
Oh, yeah.
they had an album called It's Better to Travel.
Oh, okay.
When you travel, it makes the ordinary different because you're doing it somewhere else, and you're experience things you just, here we go to the store, and we just I'll just speak for myself. You're not necessarily noticing everything around you, but there you do. So that's just one of those. The more I travel, the more I go somewhere, the more I want to see the place, even if I've been there a while. So
Oh, I love that. So
yeah.
I love that because I feel the same way. I'm dying to go back to Bali. Is I went there in 2016, I think, and 2017, and I'm waiting. I've been dying to go back, and so this is my time. I've been online looking, and because I just loved all the things you're saying, going shopping, experiencing, trying to get across the street.
Oh, some of the places you go, that's a challenge. I remember not these trips going to Bangkok. Someone said you can't cross the street, and I said I'm from New York, but they were
Right.
right.
Yeah.
They were right.
Me too, Howard. I'm from New York as well, and I had the same thought. I'm like, please, come on, I can cross the street. And then I got there, and I what I learned is to watch the dogs because the dogs had it down, and I watched the dogs, and when the dog took off, I took off. It was just,
That's smart. Okay, where in New York are you? Where in New York are you from?
I'm from the Bronx.
I'm from the Bronx.
Oh my God, Pelham Parkway.
I'm from it's Irwin Avenue below Kingsbridge near the ice skating rink. I can't believe this. This is pretty funny. We're both in California Bay Area now. We're from the Bronx. That's pretty funny.
That's pretty funny. And yeah, and it's like, yeah, we'll have to talk
Well,
offline
of that,
sometime.
My parents were New York City school teachers.
Oh, wow.
But my father taught near Marshallow Parkway, not Pelham. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah,
Wow.
small
Wow.
world. Small world.
So when you are thinking about your story, is there a specific story from your caregiving journey that you think that the Life is a Sacred Journey family would benefit from?
Well, there's quite a few. Where it involves levity or
Where it fits into the theme of your book and
there's a lot of them, but there's a couple that jump out right now. I mentioned earlier, um, my father broke his hip at age 94, and they say that over 90% of people in their 90s pass within a year. He lasted 5 more years. He did that in like it. Fortunately, he did it in LA because if he had just gotten to LA. If it was Florida, it would have been a nightmare for both my brother and myself.
yeah.
And so I was down there a lot, and he recovered. And then they're like, "We're going to go back to Florida in November." And I thought, these people are crazy. They're absolutely crazy. How are they going to do this? And it really stressed me out that
Yeah.
they were doing this. I was fighting. I tried everything. It's like you try to use logic, then you lose that and you start yelling. And I have to give credit, and I can't pronounce the author's name, Bean Mortal, the doctor who
Oh,
wrote that
okay.
book,
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
sometimes people who are older, the only thing they have in their life are their choices, and they'll make them whether it's right or wrong.
Right.
So I took a deep breath and I called my mother. I said, "Okay, when do you want to go? I'll go with you." And of course, that was humorous because she thought I was up to something, but I really wasn't. Because I thought I'm not going to let him go alone.
Right.
Because a year before, I think I took him to the airport to go alone, and they fell on the escalator. I
Oh,
caught my mother, and if a stranger hadn't caught my father, he wouldn't have lived as long. So I was like, they can't
yeah.
travel alone. And you know
No.
what? I'm glad they went. They had their lives there. They had more help. So I guess the lesson I learned was you can't fight every battle. You can't fight everything. And there's some things you have to. If they're going to do something that's absolutely dangerous, which I think I'm lucky because my mother had the dementia, but she didn't leave ovens on. She didn't wander. So it wasn't,
Okay.
those are things you have to stand up, or if they're getting the spam calls and they're going to give money to someone's like, no, you
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
But with this, I don't know. It helped me to, to just, okay, you go with the flow with them. And they went back to Florida. Well, they were there in 2020.
Oh, wow.
They were there because, yeah, they were there in 20. And my father didn't want to come back initially to LA because there was more COVID cases in
LA, right?
California. In California,
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
it's going to happen in Florida as well. And the only reason he decided, my mother wanted to come back. The only reason he decided to come back is a friend of his died unexpectedly, not of COVID, but he realized maybe he should be near his kids. But yeah, it's hard not to fight sometimes. You're doing it because you care,
Yeah.
but um, sometimes you have to let it go.
Yes. Yes. You have to let it go. That's right. And when you are traveling and doing, you're building this you're building what I see, and I think about this a lot about intergenerational gaps that we have, that how um, that middle age and aging adults and particularly with parents, because I've worked a lot with families, but my parents have been gone a while. So how do you feel that levity can bridge sort of that generational gap between middle-aged adults and their parents? I dare to say, friends, that with every generation, because I'm working a lot with millennials now and XYZ, and I'm realizing that hyper thing that younger generations have that older generations don't think they're worthy. I use levity. It's interesting, Howard, to try to break that ice, that to
Right.
say, let's have dialogue, let's have conversation. But in as it relates to our time today, how does that work, or how do you feel that gap? How to bridge it between the middle-aged parent?
Well, what's interesting, the couple of things. As I was going through this, I have a friend who was about 15 years younger than I am, who was having issues with his mom. She's still around, and I said to him, "I'm sorry you're going through that, and it's harder, but at least you're younger. Um, you can. It's easier for you to sleep anywhere." I mean, as you're a kid, and what I did is I kind of sometimes joked and sometimes not with my parents, saying, have you looked at me recently? I'm not so young. I can't do all these things all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and it, and as I'm reflecting back, Michelle, probably when I did it more humorously, it got across better. But sometimes I was just it gets harder as you get older to do these things, to do them. I One thing I realized today, and I made a note earlier. I'm talking to you right now. My phone's I'm not looking at my phone, but when they were around, I had to have that phone. I didn't know what, and that's stressful when you're trying to do other things. And I think as we get older, as we get older, well, we have to take care of ourselves.
hmm
So and yeah, and I think even just making them aware of it, and if they remember it for a moment, I
yeah,
think it helps the person who's more middle-aged and not old, because we're all living longer. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know what the statistics are, but
yeah.
that was I, God, that and when they where they lived in Florida, that there wasn't a bed, it was a sleeper couch. There wasn't even a good value sleeper couch. It was hard to sleep on that thing.
And you were waking up tired and hurting, and it's
Well,
like,
yeah,
come on.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because I'm thinking of that now because I have two children. They
Hmm.
are adults, and I realize the day will come that this shell, the way it is existing right now, because I'm pretty energetic. I do get tired. I have more pains. I have sciatica, that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
Um, but I realize the day will come where they will realize, whoa, mom is getting older, even though I've been getting older all along, right? I've been getting older every day that they've been
Well,
getting older.
we all are, yes.
Yeah. But was there a moment where you thought, oh my gosh, they're old?
Uh, yes, a few moments. One was a phone message from my mother, and I realized, wow, she sounds older. Um, but then I realized it when they stopped making fun of being older. One time I was with them and they said, how does it feel to hang out with old people? And I realized in reflecting back, you're not that old when you say something like that. Because later on, that comment, they would never have said that comment.
Oh
So little
wow.
things like that, that you notice that they're old. What you just said about your kids reminded me, I have two nieces, and I don't know, 2020, for many reasons,
Yeah,
was a big thing, but my parents lived for about a month with my brother. It was he brought him back from Florida, and the theory was they'll won't if they just see him, they would be safer. And in theory, that's nice, but when you're working full time and they need help, it doesn't work.
that's
So
right.
we were all there, but I went out. I can't remember if it's 2020 or 2021. I was with my youngest niece who said, "Well, Howard, it was nice. I'll take care of you when you're older." And we were talking, and I said, Jesse, we have at least 20 years for that. This conversation. You know what she said to me?
Yeah.
Maybe 15. Isn't that great? But 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 I think humor also, some humor changes, at least the self-deprecating humor changes, my experience, as you get older. You're not
Yeah.
laughing about certain things. In fact, sometimes I try to say jokes or lines, and my mother said it's not funny. And sometimes she wants it's not funny anymore. It's not funny anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then there were other things. The last time I took her to the doctor, because I didn't go to the doctor, I just happened to be there, and I would took her to the doctor. It's just like 2 months before she passed or something, and she
Mhm.
was, you know, so we came out, and she goes, "I think I'm depressed," and I said, "Well, Ma, it makes complete sense that, and by the way, she had a lot of different problems but one of them was issues with her stomaching,
Mhm.
um, um, constipation and all that. But so I said, it makes complete sense that
Mhm.
you're stressed. Look at all this shit you've gone through since Dad died. And she
Yeah.
just looked at me with such sincerity and said, if I could just shit. And and she meant it seriously, but if you think about that, it's such a line. I just started to laugh. And
Yeah.
and the laughter got her to laugh for
Yes.
that moment. Even though she had been serious, there got her to laugh. So in that moment, we were both equals in that we were enjoying. We both, my brother and I, we tried to do that with her. You let her listen to Don Rickles. What is he, the king of insults?
Yes.
We just would crack up. We'd all crack up. Or I
Yes.
watched. Mom couldn't see really. She had macular degeneration, and so, but what is it? TCM, that
Oh yeah.
station?
Oh yeah.
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 And so we had recorded
Oh.
What's Up, Doc, and watched it. Remember that movie with Barbara Streisand?
I love that movie.
It's hilarious. Well, for the hour and a half we were sitting there, we were both laughing like crazy.
I
So,
love that.
there were, yes, you could see where they've gotten older, and you could see where you could bring them back. And for me, it's getting them to laugh. I mean, I suppose, Michelle, I don't know the answer. If someone's really never laughed in their whole life, maybe they can laugh. Maybe they wish
Yeah.
they had laughed. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And maybe they laughed at one point and something happened so catastrophic that it took the laughter out of them, that and so finding a way to just be, like you said, in the moment, and finding that that spark of whatever it is that, because I learned that with the people with dementia. They would say things to me that somebody who didn't have dementia, I might feel insulted. But when they said it with such a little glimmer in their eye, such life in their eye. I found it hilarious. And then I would laugh and they would laugh. And I go, you're kind of right. Like when I was pregnant with my daughter, one of the ladies, as I had on overalls and I was walking by saying good morning to everybody, and she stopped me and she did like this for me
Yeah.
to come over because she thought she was telling me a secret. And had me lean down, and I leaned down, and she said, "Ooh, baby, you need to stop eating. You're getting very, very fat." I said, Miss, we called her Cowgirl. I said, Cowgirl, I'm pregnant. She said, even so, you are real big. I said, okay. I laughed about that until after my daughter was born and everything. And I actually had gained a lot of weight. She was right. I mean, but it was the way, it was like she was giving me this little tidbit of wisdom in secrecy. Like I knew it. That's why I was
But
wearing overalls.
I I had that's hilarious. I had the quote pleasure. I'll put that in quotes. I came from a family where pretty much that happened without having any dementia. After my father broke his hip. Now my mother at this point, she was fine. Oh, except she couldn't see. She was starting to have trouble with her eyesight. I drive all the way from San Francisco to LA.
Wow.
Get there. I stopped at the house before I went to see my father. She happened to be home, and she looks at me and she goes, Howard, those shorts are hideous. And I said, I thought you can't see. And she goes, Howard, you don't have to see how ugly those shorts are. After what, a 6 or 7 hour drive? I mean, what do? You could get insulted by it or you just laugh. The things that she would say
You're like,
sometimes.
I thought you couldn't see, lady. How do you see these shorts? I
But
love
now I'm not sure I agree with her that they were ugly, but I don't I got rid of them at some point, so I don't know.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Your book touches on gratitude too, and
Yeah.
the gratitude that came from and comes from caregiving. I think I know that feeling. How can people focus on the blessings and the gratitude? We've done many, many podcasts on, just being grateful for the experience, but I'd love to hear from you how people can focus on the blessing instead of just the what I call the doom and gloom side of the relationship.
While it's going on or after? While it's
Why don't you start with while and then after?
yeah, well, because I think you're in the moment, you're in the weeds there, and so that's why I don't I probably said well, who am I kidding? I'm sure I said this to them. You're my blessing and you're my burden. I mean, because look, what a gift to have people live so long and healthy. They didn't we I mean they had no illnesses. There were things as you get older and they particularly my father, his mind was there. His mind was there. My mother had more some things, but even her dementia wasn't she always knew who we were. She just repeated herself a lot. It could have gotten worse. And she had ailments, but she even said how lucky she doesn't have cancer.
Mm.
We don't have any of those things. And so I absolutely recognized the gratitude with that. I'd say that the way I look at it, because I've taught how people behave, and there's certain behaviors when you have two direct. There's two of them. I don't know if you're familiar with the DISC behavioral assessment.
Oh
Well,
yes, I'm a D.
I'm a DI, and the
Oh, yeah,
thing with a
we both
DI.
are. We have too much in common. I'm a DI also.
Okay, so we have the ability to see the glass half empty and half full at the exact same moment. So
Yeah.
at least, and so it's like, wow, this is hard to do, but how exciting we have this opportunity, and both are true. And if you could do that while you're doing these things, for interrupting your life on a major basis to take care of others, if you could do both those things, that's the way to get the blessings in with the bird. I also knew. Well, I'm one of those. I don't know if it's weird. Back when I was in my 30s, I recorded a lot of messages from my parents. I have a bunch of them, but just
Oh,
because I knew
cool.
these moments, we're here for just moments, right? And that's something that you look at a tree. We're here for such a short period of time, and I knew that it would end. And somehow, although my parents were like it's like people around them were going, and they just kept going for quite a while.
Mm,
So there's no magic bullet to do it, but if you can just realize, you know, um, it's finite time. Also, Michelle, though, it comes from your background. What was your relationship like before? What was your relationship like with the people you're caring for, your siblings? My brother and I fought constantly on this, but ultimately we were fighting because we both just had different ways to handle a very stressful situation.
right,
So
right.
there's I wish I had like do this and you'll get lessons.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not a DMV manual. It's not a, we
Oh,
don't.
no, it's not like my mother wanted to take a pill and feel better, and like who
Yeah,
doesn't? You take a pill,
yeah,
you have all the aches and pains. It
yeah,
doesn't work that way. And on hindsight, well, that's why also took a lot of notes. That's just me.
yeah.
And reflecting back on those and remembering things and mo just little moments that you may not feel grateful. Here's one. I have there's an elderly neighbor, and I don't know, several months ago took him to lunch, and I just said, "Wait here," because I had to park the car. And
Right.
I remember I did that with my mother.
Yeah,
Just wait here.
yeah.
And towards the last several years, I'd hold her hand as we walked, and it's kind of like I miss that. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I'd miss that until,
Mm-hmm.
it was, yeah. So
You
just
know,
think
it,
about
it,
it.
I'm thinking when you say that, it's so because yesterday I was with my granddaughter who's not quite two yet. And I said the very same thing to her as I was pulling the trash. I was at my son's house, pulling the big trash containers back around the house. And I said to her, wait here. Nini's going to pull these around. It's the same. It is an interesting, because I thought this, and not even knowing you and I were going to have this conversation, that one day they're going to have to say to me, Mom, you need to wait over here. I'll be back. Right? It's
Yeah.
the flip side of that. It's a safety thing. It's a I don't want you to get in the street. I don't want anybody to harm you. And I smiled to myself, thinking what it would sound like when if it were my daughter or my son telling me what I was telling her. And that is so amazing that you chose to speak on that today because I just had that thought yesterday.
Well, yeah, I think I mean, I don't know how any of us, as we get older, we don't know. That's the one thing. Also, I joke with my friends now as we're playing tennis, and we have all our different, aches and whatever it is. I said, this is nothing compared to what we're going to have, and
I
we don't know how we're going to be when, as we get older. And um, but yeah, how my father went from resisting someone to help him bathe to then he just expected it. And it's
Mhm.
kind of, you get used to it.
Yeah, please help me. Please help me.
Well, well, actually, if you think about it, any of us who it kind of, I mean, we like it. Wouldn't it be nice if someone just bathed us?
Get that back area there where I can't reach,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
If someone and we have listeners, as I said, all over the world, thank you all for your following us and loving us. We love you too. If someone is listening and navigating this caregiver journey that many people are telling them that is impossible, what's the one thing that you want them to take away from our conversation this morning?
That what's impossible? But
that some of them that are listening right now are on the caregiver journey, and the things that we've talked about, they think, no, this caregiver journey is not, this is impossible that I'm doing this. What is the one thing you would want
yeah.
them to take away?
So a few weeks before my father died at age 99, my brother would call him on the road to talk about his work. He's a lawyer and he had a captive audience. My father would listen, my brother could go on and on. And in this particular time, my father said to him, Andy, it'll work out.
Oh
And
my,
if it doesn't work out, it worked out.
oh,
And my brother told me that after he passed, and we said, he may not have lived his life that way, but the fact that he said that to you a few weeks before he passed, it's the quote in the front of my book, but that's kind of my mantra now. It'll work out. And if it doesn't work out, it worked out. And so we all have things, even if you're not, it's not enough to be about caregiving. If you are stuck in something, it's not impossible. It seems like it's it's I'm not- it's I don't know if things are predestined or but you go with it. It'll work out. And that's like one of the greatest gifts I've gotten. So if the listeners are like this isn't my situation, it may not be, right? But
right, right.
it's working. It probably what isn't, but it will work out. And
Yep.
um that comes to trust, that comes to just, or it comes to just letting go.
Letting go. Friends, Howard Miller has been with us this morning, and I am so in love with this conversation. It's amazing the people that come to Life is a Sacred Journey. I end up falling in love with the conversations with the person and the joy that they bring to this platform. But the one thing that he said this morning that really, 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 I would love for you to take away is that you can make it through. You will make it through.
Yes.
And I love the idea that, and we've talked about this, and people have said to me, "Oh, Michelle, you want me to journal?" No, I never said I wanted you to journal. I just said write down those diamonds, write down those ahas, write down the things that you go, write it down. And the reason is because you can reflect on it later and see how you've grown, how you've used it, how it's manifested into the full being that you are. And that comes to divorce, that comes from to ending relation, everything that we do that brings us grief, and makes us feel like we've been sucker punched. Write it down.
Hmm.
It's important to write it down. That's what Howard did. How many things did you say you had?
Well, as you said that, it's like if you said I was journaling, I probably wouldn't have done it. I had at least 350 Word documents. Now, some of them, a lot of them were about medications or doctors, but some of them were just my thoughts. Sometimes my thoughts were in the middle of all of the other notes. I mean, there's just when I was writing my book, I went through them, but I probably didn't hit all the aspects of it. It was just to get it out,
Right.
not to let it stuck within me. That's kind of, but I never, until you just said it now, I didn't realize, boy, I guess I was journaling a little bit, but also because, for the other stuff, how do you remember it all too?
How do you
That's
remember it all?
I
That's
mean,
what I tell people. Yep.
particularly when it comes to taking care of them and just all the different the eight different agencies, the home care agencies, the assisted living places we never went to, and just the comparisons and all that.
As well as, it gives you a ballpark, a figure of, because at some point the stuff gets all jumbled up. You had two people you were caring for and yourself, and it's like, okay, is this mom's appointment, dad's appointment, my appointment? And when you write it down, you have a better way of keeping control of the data and the information, and then you feel more in control, which takes away some of that angst that we get when we're caregiving as well.
Yeah, you know what? You just hit it. Writing those things down gave me more control.
Yep. Yep.
That's abs. I hadn't thought about it in that way until you just said it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, some of us like more control than others, but we all feel, we don't, none of us like to feel out of control. And writing things down helps you be more in control. Mhm.
Yep. Because you're already spiraling. There's already stuff spiraling in your life.
Yes.
Well, friends, we are at the end of our time with Howard Miller, who is an author, speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He has this book, this incredible book called Burdens and Blessings. I'm going to get it, and as always, I always order two, one for me and one to give away. And that's my philosophy, and so please do the same. And then there is a Felicia will put, and I always do this because I don't know where it goes, but this, she's going to put a link in that you will also have access to the book if you need to do that. And I advise that you should, because you know what? You may not be caregiving for somebody in your family, but there may be a neighbor, there may be a church member, there may be a good friend that someday you may do a little bit of caregiving for or with, and the next thing you know, you're the one. You're the one taking them to the doctor's appointment. You're the one making sure they get their medications. You're the one. And you know what? It's okay. Because you know that saying, I'm not my brother's keeper. Yeah, we are.
Mm.
Yeah, we are. And when we just kind of embrace that and know that with love and gratitude and turn the burdens of what we think that means into blessings, I'm using Howard's, the title of his book. Um, you will find joy in life. And if you live to be 99 years old or 100, and there's a woman now that's 110 that I read about the
Wow.
other day, don't you want to do that with some fun and some joy? Yeah, I mean, golly, you don't want to go, oh, I'm just so sick of being 110, because one day you will go to sleep and never wake up again. And that's the cycle of life. So enjoy it while you can. Howard, is there any last words you would like to share with our family?
Well, I've enjoyed our conversation. I feel like we could go on and on.
We could.
Again, it's my father's words. It'll work out. If it doesn't work out, it worked out. And it's really, for me, just was a great gift to get that. So,
Amen. I love it.
mm.
Friends, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to ask Howard to stay on for a few more minutes so I can thank him more offline. But you know how we always do it here. It is, for me, it is going to be Easter, and I am going to be celebrating Easter. It is, I happen to be a believer, so it's a big weekend for me. For some of you, it may not be, but still, let me tell you this. Get out into the world. Hug a tree. Hugging trees are my favorite things in life to do. I think sometimes people walk by me and go, okay, that lady's insane. Let's run. But I love hugging trees. Pet a cat if you have one available to you. Pet a dog if you have one available to you. And if you can't do all of that, pet yourself. Because you know what? You are your best friend. And it's okay that if there's nothing else there, you are good enough. All right. So have a wonderful weekend here in California. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like. It's been cloudy and weird every single day, and then blue skies in the afternoon. So I don't know. But wherever you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey, you are a blessing to us. And we thank you for coming. And we thank our guest today, Howard Miller, who joined us to really talk about a topic that is so important. And this sandwich generation, as well as all of us that are doing this wonderful, glorious thing called life. If you are a person out there that is feeling depressed and you feel that ending your life is something that you want to do, we're here to say, don't do that. 988 is the hotline number that you can call. Incredible people on the other line that will support you, get you resources, talk you through. Nothing, I've been there, so I'm not telling you this because I'm pulling this out of the air. Um, your life is worth living. It is. It is. So hang in there, get some help, and we here at Life is a Sacred Journey love you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and be good to yourselves. Okay, take care.